WXOS, WXOS HD1E St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. It's time for the First Community Credit Union Blues postgame show.
Presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company on 101 ESPN.
Blues are going to force it up. This game needs a hit. Right now, this game just needs a hit. It needs something, doesn't it? It's been way too much. But I mean, 8 shots on goal for both squads right now, but it just doesn't seem like, almost seems like a chess match. Everyone's just afraid to make a play at this point. Snuggerud to Shen. Snuggerud and he scores! We'll take a goal instead. Jimmy's heating up. 12:49 to go in the first. 1-0 St. Louis.
Boy, he really is heating up. Jimmy Snuggerud, a big goal there early on in this one as he continues his goal-scoring ways. Back-to-back games, back-to-back goals as Jimmy Snuggerud has scored his 9th of the season. Welcome, everyone, into our extended post-game coverage, the 4th period, here on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN, along with Joe Vitale. I'm Alex Ferrario as we jump right into it with our Ted Drew's 3 takeaways. And, Joe, let's start with Jimmy Snuggerud. I know it's a bad outcome, a 5-3 loss, but you sit here and find the positives in a bad game like this. Jimmy Snuggerud's one of them. Once again, 4 shot attempts, which sounds crazy to say. That's low considering what Snuggerud has typically been doing this season. But a goal, an assist, and I mean, he showed the wheels on that play with the give and go on Braden Shen.
Well, I tell you, he's been such a fun player to watch. You know, I don't know if he's going to be this franchise, put you on the edge of your seat, Brett Hull type. I don't know. He's got a long way to go.
Yeah.
But, man, he's on his way. Just when I thought, you know, last year we saw the shot in the Winnipeg series, like, okay, there it was. Especially, I think it was game 2 at the end of the first period with the following seconds where he scores that goal under the bar on Hellebuck. You're like, wow, okay. I think the whole league was like, okay. I'm pretty sure at that point Doug Armstrong was like, I think we can move along with one of these right wingers, and this kid's going to be in our top 6.
Yeah.
He comes in the year, you're thinking it's the shot. I thought that at the start of the year I saw the hockey IQ, the playmaking, the passes. We're still seeing the passes, you know, kind of eyes in the back of his head, you know, throwing pucks into areas where players can skate onto it, you know, not only thinking about the play ahead of him, but where his players are going to be. So you're starting to see the intelligence of the playmaking now, and now I'm starting to see more and more speed. You know, you mentioned the speed on the goal. You know, Alex, how about the speed they're drawing that penalty in the third period, too? I forget. I think it was Fantilli that reaches around and grabs him. You know, he's got that jump, and he doesn't look like it either. You know, he's a player, and he's a kid. He's the character where he kind of like just kind of shows up. You almost feel like he's wearing his pajamas every day to the rink, and he just kind of like slowly kind of that next – he's just that generation type where he just kind of slowly gets into the day, and nothing over the top or exciting and not too energetic, you know, very just low-key. And then he steps on the ice, and he's like a completely different human. He just goes, and there was moments in the game where he just really took off, and you really showcased that speed, that first 3 strides. I don't know. He's a fun player to watch. Like I said, there's a few great things to take away from this game, and from an individual standpoint, he was one of them.
Is it crazy? And I don't know if you like player comps, Joe. I always do because I feel like it gives fans a really good idea of where they're at. Is it crazy to think that he couldn't be like a Cole Caulfield?
You know what?
Or is Cole Caulfield maybe just more one-dimensional because he's just a pure shooter, and Jimmy Snuggerud's got the ability to make passes. He plays an extremely strong defense.
No, I think of both the right-hand shot.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the one thing about Cole, from the little we see him, you know, we don't see him a ton.
Right.
He's in the Eastern Conference, but he's got such a deceptive release where – you know, Robert Thomas, even I was talking to him once about this last year, and, you know, Robert's a true student of the game where he's looking at different shooters, whether it be Alex Ovechkin, and he mentioned Cole Caulfield. He's always watching goals, and he's always watching the release points and how these guys are getting shots off. Cole Caulfield, to me, has got one of the most deceptive shots from, like, the fact that he hides it, you know, off the blade, the way he kind of leans in, he drags it to his front foot, he kind of drags in and pulls out, changes the direction, changes the angle. You know, he shoots the puck in stride. It's like he's almost moving in that direction while he's shooting. So he really trips up goaltenders. I think for Jimmy, from what I have seen, I think the velocity is greater than.
He's not deceptive. He's power.
Yeah, he's got the power, right? He's got that engine where he puts fire behind it. You smell the gasoline when he takes off. So the velocity is there. I think he's got the accuracy, but goal scorers in the league now, it's not really velocity and it's not really just accuracy. Those help. It's the deceptiveness of the shot. Like Kirill Kaprizov is a perfect example where he doesn't have a lightning shot. He's got accuracy, but it's the way he hides it, the way he drags it in. David Pastrnak is another perfect example.
Yeah.
Certainly an accurate shooter. He's got some good zip behind it, but neither of those two categories really stand out. But it's the way they kind of hide the puck, whether they have it off the heel, they have it off the toe, they release it off the toe. Is it the pop off the blade? Coming in like the best goal scorers like Cole, they see the net from their eyes. That's the only vantage point they can see.
Yeah.
But they put their eyes almost behind the puck because what the puck is seeing and what your eyes are seeing are two very different things because, they're 4.5 feet apart from each other. So like for just a beginner shooter or anyone who's ever played the game of hockey, you come in on a breakaway and what you see are holes. But you're seeing the holes from your vantage point in your eyes. The vantage point of the puck is a different vantage point than your eyes. So these goal scorers, you almost can, you see the holes from your eyes, but you almost think, but what is the puck seeing right now? So those are two very different things, and I think that certainly Jimmy's got a little bit of ways to go there, but I think one day, we're talking the same numbers of Cole Caulfield.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was getting at, but that's really fascinating, velocity versus sneaky shots, and there are two different categories on that one. Another one, Joe, that I wanted to ask you in terms of the positives, that power play goal that they scored, and we'll talk about the power play struggling there in the third period, but, they get that goal. Berggren's the one that scores it. Suter and Schenn cause the chaos in front of the net. But, man, I couldn't help but have my eyes directed towards Philip Broberg. We talk so much on Justin Falk and how good of a power play quarterback he can be because he just puts the puck on net. Broberg skates the blue line, and then he just gets a shot directly on net from Jet Greaves. It's one of those low shin, high ones you talk a lot about. Hits the pads, creates the chaos in front. That steps towards Broberg learning that position as a power play quarterback.
Well, that happened a couple times in the game tonight. Let's start with the Columbus one where, it was Ken Johnson who tips that puck from the outside. I believe it was Provorov who just simply throws it there. He gets a high tip on it in the net. They're purposeful shots. They're not shooting these pucks to score from the point. And I think Broberg did the exact same thing. When he shot that puck, he saw Schenn in front. He saw Suter. And, for Braden to get a tip on it, and he kind of gets in and around that rebound, he gets a poke on it, stabs at that puck, keeps it alive, it gets between the hash marks. I actually think that Pius Suter really makes this play because he wins that quick little battle, barely gets a tip on it, and he shoots it over to Berggren before Berggren puts in the power play goal. This game, I go back to it a lot. It's a simple game, especially on the power play. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Sometimes just throwing that puck there, but making sure you have bodies there. How many goofy bounces did we see tonight?
A lot.
Tyler Tucker's shot from the outside goes off of Boone Jenner and then goes bar down. There was a goal by the Columbus Blue Jackets in that first period.
Yeah, that Lundestrom goal.
Lundestrom scores, and it goes off the shaft of Parayko, and then Ken Johnson gets a tip, and then there's a scrum in front where Bergen pops up a rebound. I don't know. It was just a lot of just wacky, weird bounces, not an incredibly sexy game or entertaining game or energetic game. It just felt very vanilla back and forth, and these weird bounces are just going in. And to some degree, we'll kind of maybe piggyback this up to the final play of the game where Kyrou turns that puck over and the game's over. In some ways you understand what Kyrou is doing there because of all the wacky bounces. I think he was trying to get the puck at the net. I think that Jim Montgomery called that timeout, and they wanted to make sure you got pucks there. One of the issues in the past was that too much perimeter, too many passing. Let's just put your nose down, get to the front of the net, throw a puck there, reward the guys that are around there. You had Snuggerud there, you had Buchnevich on the back door, you had Braden Schenn in the high slot. So I think Kyrou was simply trying to get a puck at the net and create some sort of chaotic state. The issue was, of course, for Kyrou, if he could do that shot all over again, you got to do a couple things differently. You got to put more air underneath it. You got to put more velocity on it. To me, that was a quick little slap wrist shot, if you will. It was on the ice, didn't have a lot of velocity or zip to it. It was an easy play for the defenders to open up his boot, make a block, and then, of course, Marchman gets it, and then he ends the game. So those are gosh, I don't even think you can call them teachable, learnable moments. I mean, at this point, Kyrou he's a player that really should know better.
Yeah.
This isn't a divorce.
You've been in the league long enough. That
this is not a Jimmy Snuggerud making this play from the outside. Well, you're hoping that he learns. I mean, at this point, you need a harder play there. You need to make a better play. You're a top goal scorer. You're a back-to-back-to-back 30-plus goal scorer. You were coming into the season hoping to push at 40. Those numbers will not probably add up by the end of the year. Does he get to 30? I don't know. It's going to be very, very hard. He's going to have to go on quite a run here. And that just really showcases how offensively it has fallen off for him. Now, he has been much better. He's a player you need out there because not only how good he's been playing lately, because he can make a difference in the game. We saw 2 nights ago, his one-timer ends up getting blocked, but he moves it around the horn. Jimmy Snuggerud wins it with 10 seconds to go. But he's a guy that you want to be out there. So I don't argue the personnel, but at the same time, you have to be the engine in that moment.
Right.
You have to want the puck. You have to be the Michael Jordan. I want the ball when the game is on the line. And unfortunately, he just doesn't make a strong enough play. It gets deflected to the outside, and that was it.
Away from the game, Joe, as we'll wrap up with this on our Ted Drew's 3 takeaways. We found out in game during the second intermission, I believe, Robert Thomas had a procedure done on his lower body yesterday. They said that they expect him to be returned, ready to play once the Olympics, once play resumes post-Olympics. That's the one thing I'll be fascinated to see what Robert Thomas looks like. Last year, he went off like gangbusters at the end of the season, was one of the best players in the National Hockey League. I saw somebody put it out there yesterday on social media that in terms of assists created per 60 minutes, the only 2 centers he trails in the National Hockey League from the last 2 seasons is Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon. I'll be fascinated to see what he looks like coming back because it could fall in a line. I know he underperformed at the start of this year, but maybe he's been dealing with something since the season began.
Yeah, I think he has. I've seen Robert off the ice quite a bit, and without giving away some of the visuals, this is a player that's been battling injury all year, and I think that you see the numbers fall off, and it's easy to be the casual fan and just say, what the heck happened to him, and let's start dogging him. This is a player that's playing through injury. He's been playing through injury for a while. We've seen different games where he's almost got tripped up. The Colorado game's a perfect example. That last shift in the game where he didn't end up finishing and very slow and tenderly gets off the ice. And what does he do? He comes back the very next game and plays. So he's a really tough kid. I don't think he probably wanted to get this procedure. It seemed to me, if anything, it was one of the decisions that not only he has to make, but of course Doug Armstrong and Ray Bareilles and everyone involved has to make the decision about what's best for long-term. Robert Thomas, and in some ways, the almost 4-week break here for the Olympics could be the best thing that's ever happened to him because you're not missing a whole lot of hockey time. So I'm excited to see what happens when he comes back, too. The Blues are going to have some decisions to make. With the Olympic break, everyone's going to be healthy coming back. Outside of maybe someone gets hurt in the Olympics, which is always possible. But let's just assume everyone comes back from the Olympics. I mean, you're going to have Robert Thomas around the corner for coming back. Dylan Holloway, at that point, should be healthy. Remember, you have, of course, Otto Stenberg.
Yeah, he picked up an assist tonight in the Thunderbirds game.
Yeah, he's going to get recalled. There's no question about that. So there's going to be some roster decisions.
Yeah.
You're going to have to try to figure out what you're going to do in the second half of the season. That begs the question, does Doug Armstrong make a couple moves? And Alex, he doesn't have a ton of time because when you come back from the Olympics, it's less than 2 weeks before that trade deadline. So it is going to be a push and a finish of the race like you read about with how little time there really is before the deadline is going to be made. So we'll definitely see if things are going to get shaken up here pretty soon.
Yeah, they got that roster freeze that starts on February 4th as well for the Olympics. So moves can happen prior to that or after that around the National Hockey League once it resumes on February 26th. Joe, have a safe trip, my man. Have fun on the Father's trip, and we'll talk. I guess, no, we won't. We'll talk, but not talk here until February 26th.
We're not going to talk here until February 26th.
Yeah.
We're going to talk over the
We'll talk on the road, and then we'll talk afterwards, maybe, if our families allow it.
Yeah, I think that'll be all right. Yeah, I'll talk to you when I'm in Nashville, and we're going to keep it pretty PG-13 on this trip, although the dads like to go a little bit more crazy on these
karaoke
ones.
Night for Joey?
Yeah, I'm not this time. I turned 40 this year. I turned a page, unfortunately. Or
Joey and I road trip the same. Bedtime is at 8,
buddy.
ladies and gentlemen.
I cannot wait to put my head on that pillow tomorrow night and get some turn on my little sound machine, put up my earplugs, and just Just say, that's it. Good night to everybody.
That's my hero right there.
That's it. But no, Alex, looking forward. We'll talk to you guys on Monday, of course, Wednesday, and we'll wrap this 2-game road trip up, and then everyone will hopefully have a good Olympic break. And who knows, maybe we'll see some Olympic golds coming back, maybe one or even two. We'll see what country wants to take away.
That'd be fun. I can't wait for the Olympics. He's Joe Vitale. Appreciate him with tonight's Ted Drew's 3 takeaways. Let's hear our soundbite of the night and take you back to a quote from Jim Montgomery earlier today.
The soundbite of the night is presented by Rocket Convenience Stores. Fuel your car and your daily cravings at Rocket Convenience Stores.
I would say we've been seeing it build over the last 8 games. And it was nice to get rewarded, but, I thought our crowd got us to another level of belief, because going down, we had lost a couple down, last minute, last seconds. But you could feel little tense on our bench. There was no tense on our bench. It was like a hunter's attitude, which is what we need.
So that was Jim Montgomery earlier today. He was talking about the resiliency of the team, and I know people are going to hear that and say, well, yeah, they didn't have that tonight. Well, you're not wrong. I mean, there was a different vibe with this game versus the Panthers game or even prior to that Panthers game. But, I'm not going to sit here and try and celebrate losses, but it is another 1-goal loss. And I'll give Blues credit. To be able to string 6 of those together, 6 games that have been 1-goal games, barring the empty netter, that is night and day compared to what the first 3 months of the season were, to where it felt like you couldn't even buy a 1-goal game, nonetheless a 1-goal loss or a 1-goal win. And now the Blues are playing that brand of hockey. It's just finding a way to get over the hump, and tonight they weren't able to accomplish that. And by the way, that Ted Drew's 3 takeaways brought to you by, obviously, Ted Drew's frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals. Let's take a break, come back here from Jim Montgomery, and I'll have my final look as we close it down here following a 5-3 Blue Jackets loss to the Blues lost to the Blue Jackets. I'm confusing myself with my words. Here at Enterprise Center on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN.
to the First Community Credit Union Blues postgame show.
Presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company on 101 ESPN.
Final time tonight here on the fourth period. You're home for the Blues 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario with you in our broadcast booth. We're live up on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Again, if you missed it during the second intermission tonight, the Blues announced that Robert Thomas had a procedure done on his lower body yesterday, which Curbs referenced there on his post-game breakdown. You would assume his leg, but a procedure done yesterday, and the Blues said the expectation is he will be back and ready to play once the Blues resume play following the Olympic break. And yesterday, 2 days ago, they placed Dylan Holloway on injured reserve. So essentially, Thomas and Holloway shut down through the Olympic break. And then Jake Neighbors, who didn't play tonight, played the other night against the Florida Panthers, was a late scratch to this one with that upper body injury. That he was a game-time decision on Thursday. He played in that game-time decision tonight, and was unable to go. Let's hear from Jim Montgomery following the team's 5-3 loss tonight to the Columbus Blue Jackets.
It's time to hear from the head coach, Jim Montgomery, presented by Fisher Window and Door Store, offering quality American-made Marvin windows and doors. Visit their showrooms in Brentwood or East Alton, Illinois.
I think in the first two periods we wanted it to come easy. We were not skating, working, hitting like we have in the last handful of games. And then in the third we did. We pushed, and it ended up being too little too late.
Thinking it's going to come easy. Is that something you've seen against teams on a back-to-back? I think it's 4 losses in a row where you see your opponent on the second.
No, I didn't see that in the previous 3, because we had, was it Winnipeg, Dallas, and yeah. I didn't think we anytime you play McDavid, you're not thinking it's going to be easy in Draisaitl. So it just not a foundational type of passionate workman-like game that we want to have tonight in the first 2 periods.
As far as getting that push, were the opportunities sufficient enough there for you?
Yeah, there was some good looks. I would like them to be closer to the net. I didn't like, especially on the power play, it's like we're shooting from the top of the circles instead of the hash marks. We're not attacking the goal line and having someone on the back door trying to bang it home, or else we're not executing the play when it's there. And I thought we had good looks, but I would have liked them to be a little more dangerous.
Given Shen and Snutter in particular, that chemistry that they've shown.
Yeah, they've looked good. Both of them. Obviously, on the goal, they were flying, but Snuggie had a couple of rushes in the second where he was flying too, and almost went through 3 guys at one stretch.
You talked about being better in the net front, in front of the net was tonight, I guess, an exception. Wasn't good enough tonight.
I don't think it was an exception when you're looking at the entirety of the season. That Columbus team, my good friend Rick Bowness is doing a really good job. They're really big, and they play a heavy game. They go to the net front. And we've played them twice now, and they've scored 3 goals in both games, rebound, tips, just mucking it up. And, something that we've been trying to preach to do a little more of ourselves. And I think we've gotten slightly better at it, but not at their level.
Thomas and the procedure, what made that kind of the Robert Thomas the path forward that?
I think that, the consensus was that in the end, if he gets this done, it would be the best thing long term instead of trying to manage it.
Just allows that. This is not something that would have been doable without the break there. We just would have missed more games. I
think it was just becoming a nuisance to him. So, it's it's no fun every time you take a stride that you have pain.
Neighbors just couldn't give it a go tonight, I guess. Is he day-to-day here? Or?
Yeah, we expect him to play in Nashville. Just, unfortunately, it's just too painful.
It's time to take a look back at tonight's game with the final look.
Driven by Pure Performance. Only stop for all your aftermarket vehicle needs.
So Jim Montgomery there, quote on Robert Thomas, and I'm in agreement there. I'm glad they made the decision. Maybe you say, why didn't they make it sooner? That's a Robert Thomas decision to try and play through it and play for the team as long as he can. Unfortunately, it just wasn't going well. And I'll be fascinated to see what he looks like when he comes back, because I think a lot of us saw Robert Thomas this year and said, that doesn't look like the Robert Thomas we're used to seeing. But it wasn't a healthy Robert Thomas. If this injury has been nagging him that long. And let's not forget, he played that game versus Detroit back in late October and then didn't play again until early November. So missed about 4 or 5 games, came back, and then played all the way up until this most recent absence that has been without. And there have been maintenance days sprinkled in for Robert Thomas. So Robert Thomas last season, from post-Four Nations break until the end of the season, was top 3 player among points in the National Hockey League. That's the player we're used to. That's not the player we saw this season. And I really wonder if that player has just not been healthy. And now you're going to get 4+ weeks off, and you're going to be healthier, and Robert Thomas could potentially be back to that guy that we're used to seeing. The other thing I wanted to mention was just what Jim Montgomery said with the chances. And he said, I would have liked to see some of those closer to the net. If you go over to Natural Stat Trick, which it's got a graph essentially to where the shot volume comes from. And a majority of the shot volume came from the face-off dot, the far side face-off dot, if you're staring at the goal from on top of the broadcast booth. And that Florida Panthers game, if you go and look at it, man, it was just all around the front of the net. So, that Kyrou goal, I think, speaks a lot to what he's talking about there. Those 2 power plays at the end that only had 3 shots on goal. But, man, you look at how they scored these goals tonight. Berggren with the rebound shot. Tucker with traffic in front of the net. Snuggerud with that 2-on-1. If they can find that consistency, that's where that offense can continue to thrive. And look, you had 3 games where they scored 4 goals in. You had 5 goals against the Panthers, 3 goals against the Stars, 4 goals against the LA Kings. So that's 12 goals, and then you had 15 in 4 games. I'm going to have to go back and look through this in terms of games this season, but I have to imagine that's the most in a 4-game stretch that we have seen from the Blues overall this season. So offense trending in the right direction, although it was a step backwards tonight. You're getting healthier, some big decisions that are going to have to be made for the Blues in terms of roster crunch, and they've got 2 more games to go before they head into that Olympic break. That game on Monday, game 1 of those final 2, is it his dad's trip on this road trip, so that'll always be fun and some great stories Joe Vitale and Chris Kerber will share along the way. They take on Nashville Monday night. It'll be a 7 o'clock puck drop against the Predators with an extended pregame beginning at 6 o'clock right here on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN. Once again, a huge thank you to Jim Huer here in our broadcast booth, Shelby Sheehai helping us around as well, and our great producer Jordan Deacon back in our network studios. I'm Alex Ferrario. Hope everyone has a great rest of their evening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll talk to you Monday from at 11 until 2 for BK and Ferrario, and then I'll have puck drop between the Blues and Predators at 6 right here on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN.
Thanks for listening to the First Community Credit Union Blues postgame show.
Presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company on 101.